Hello and welcome once again to this week's edition of Leafwire's Industry Trailblazers, where we speak with and learn from some of the industry's true pioneers. Please welcome today Tiffany Watkins. Welcome, Tiffany. So glad to have you on today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I know we've been trying to do this for a while, so it's great that we're finally getting ourselves together. Let me give just a little bit of a brief intro. Tiffany Watkins has been a cannabis advocate for the past 32 years, holding a variety of roles from patient representation, harm reduction, public policy, and community organizing. Her goal is always to elevate and unify the voices of the people in order to make pivotal changes. She founded, to that end, Vanguard MediaOnline, which is a media platform, a magazine, and most importantly, dedicated to women in cannabis. Most recently, it's very exciting, she became CEO of Cannabella, a cannabis brand dedicated to women's health. So welcome. So glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
Maybe let's start off and just tell us a bit about, your initial exposure to cannabis, the plant, and how you got into the industry. Because it sounds like you've been in the industry before it was an industry, or at least before it was a legal industry.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't say before it was an industry, but before it was a legal industry, sure. My journey began in the 80s. I was quite young, but my introduction to the plant was just like everybody else's. Hey, you ever tried smoking pot? Something like that, right? But what I quickly was able to notice, and this is because of community, this is because of my exposure to a wonderful community and camaraderie around the plant, was the fact that it could help people. I was probably, no more than maybe 16, 17 at the time, and realizing the impact, not only that it had on people's health, but the impact that it had on communities of color, that they looked like me and they were having such strife and their lives being so interrupted by a plant. And so, I think it just made my brain keep wondering about that. And I got together with some folks who were trying to make change. Now, at that time, I was having trouble understanding exactly what could be changed. What could we do? What could possibly be done, especially by a person who was, barely pushing 18 at the time. But it was explained to me and shown to me that when voices can come together, movements happen. And as movements happen, things start to change. And no matter how small or how large your piece is, it is significant to the project and to the movement. And I dove in. And so I wasn't just a person who enjoyed, consuming the plant. At that point, I was enjoying understanding the pathways of these people who were greatly affected. And what I did find was not only persons of color, but people of certain sexual orientations were being greatly affected, medical patients that were being treated with poisons when trying to treat themselves with plant medicine were being arrested in their already diminished state. And that is when I think someone must have pushed a button and the advocate grew within me to advocate for these people. And so, when I look back at it, it was a whirlwind. I don't know how it started, where it ended, any of that. And I think it's because where it started was my brain was just so open to it and just so baffled by it. And it never stopped. It's still here with me. We're still fighting some of the same struggles now. So that's always a intricate question. How did it start? Where are you now? They're kind of intertwined.
And does it end? No, it doesn't.
Really doesn't.
No. Actually, we're working on a piece right now. It's the 100th anniversary of the 1925 International Opium Agreement, which first codified the prohibition of cannabis and hemp worldwide. So yes, it's 100 years war. So, wow. Okay, fantastic. So, and now, Cannabella. You just became CEO. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I am very
Tell us.
honored to be there.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, yeah, tell us about Cannabella and what is Cannabella about and what kind of products does it produce?
Sure. Cannabella is the brainchild of Tiffany Woodman. And, she is a very innovative woman. And it came up with the concept and the idea to focus in on the stages of womanhood. There are brands out there, and I will not slight anyone. There are brands out there doing wonderfully for women's situations, health and otherwise. But, when I looked at Tiffany's background and I saw that she was trying to capture not only an audience and educate, but tailor products made to different stages of womanhood, I said, that's a holistic approach that I'm not really seeing. And I truly enjoyed it. And I was like, she talked about, trying to figure out a placement for herself in the company and what she needed. And, she put out this kind of request for conversations, and we had some conversations and determined that I was as passionate as she needed me to be about the product and as knowledgeable in the space and advocating for the plant women and marginalized citizens, that she asked if I would step in and lead the charge. And I was very, very happy and honored to say yes to that.
That's fantastic. Just as an aside, are there any other Tiffany's in the company, or are you guys just the only two Tiffany's?
I had to ask the Tiffany's.
Okay.
We do have an affinity for teas. Our initials are the same, exactly the same. Our first, middle, and last initials are exactly the same. And the person that I have we've seated as our chief scientist, also his name starts with a T.
Okay. Well, you can see, I told you this would be a hard-hitting interview, and I'd be asking really important questions. So, just in keeping with that.
And that's the best one. I love it.
I couldn't resist. Okay, so great. So products specifically for women, and you're an advocate for women and women in cannabis.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the larger picture when it comes to women's issues? I have to say, just to set this up, I do feel as though one of the things I love about our industry is how many powerful women there are in positions of influence. But of course, depending on what sector you're in and all, it can still be very much of an old boy network, old white boys, I might add. So yeah, can you talk about sort of how you see the state of the industry as it relates to women's issues?
Sure. And that's a hard hitting question. It can become quite controversial. But I will say that what I really truly see is that there are a lot of influential women in the space, but almost all of us are being underutilized. And it is, we can talk about pay disparity, we can talk about opportunity disparity, but truthfully, when an opportunity arises and you're placed in a position where you could perhaps benefit, yet you're underutilized, you just become a pretty hanging on the wall. And there have been a lot of who have kind of fallen victim to that. And we uncovered a lot of that with Vanguard, telling we always said we tell the stories, whether they're good, the bad, ugly, or indifferent. And you would be surprised how much ugly has come my way, from anywhere from women's genetics being stolen, to their formulas being taken, to them being duped on contracts, forced to sign things that they thought they were signing, and then their signature applied to something else that was not the contract. And so those bad dealings outshine so much, because it just shows us that there's so much work to do. And it becomes that question, where do we start? because it's under just about every leaf you can turn over. There is something happening with women in the space, but we wave the broad flag of, well, there's this percentage of us in leadership. There's this many Black people here. There's this many women here. And that's great for show. But when you peel back the covering just slightly, all the poor details fall right out. And that's what we really need to address. So as a whole, I see women's placement in this industry is still needing work, still needing help, and still needing seats at the table.
Maybe you could talk a bit more. I'm curious about, this stuff about contracts and stealing genetics. Okay, so with genetics, you're talking about cannabis genetics, you mean?
Yes, cannabis genetics growers. These are female cultivators. Yes.
Yeah. So you feel like a female cultivator, for example, is more likely to be targeted?
No, I wouldn't say that I think that they're more likely to be targeted. What I'm saying is that those are things that are happening.
Yeah.
And unless we're willing to speak about these things, that is our first pathway to making the changes that we want to see, is to acknowledge the fact that these things are going on. We're talking specifically about women right now, but this goes to just about anything. Any marginalized group. There's what we talk about. It almost has its own, and bear with me here, it almost has its own marketability just to scratch the surface. And that's what we continuously do. We talk about the disparities that we know already, but there's a subset of information out there that is just itching to be talked about. But there's a lot of fear around it. When you're already marginalized and you're already not getting all the opportunities that you need, it kind of keeps your mouth shut sometimes because you can't lose what you have.
Sure. Well, then that's why, I feel like there could be a perception. I mean, this is could go beyond, business and to other toxic or negative interactions, bullying, where if you're of a particular subset or marginalized group, you might be seen as less likely to say anything.
Sure.
Less likely to stand up.
Right.
Less likely to call the cops. Right. So yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's why allyship is so important. Sometimes that, we want equitable treatment. We need to understand what that looks like and unpack it. And sometimes it looks like allies, when they know that they can stand firm, not lose an opportunity, and tell the truth. Sometimes we need that.
Well, I like to think that that's what this platform is. So, I think it's really important. There was an interesting story that ran recently about a major advocacy organization. I'm wondering whether I should mention the actual name right now, but it was a book that came out that had to do with, it was a woman who was very active in this organization and who was subjected to all kinds of sexual harassment by members of the board. I don't know if you saw that story. So, I think these stories need to be told. Certainly, Leafwire ran that story and promoted it. And we want to continue. This just goes back to the whole thing, right? It's sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we need to keep shining a light on these things. I mean, allyship is such an important concept. I mean, it really just goes back to community, right? That in a community, we all look out for each other. And that's, the whole war on cannabis thing, that's all about that as well. And I think, there's within our larger community, we all have to be on the same side. And it is, it absolutely is. it's certainly true of Leafwire. And I see this all the time, just people posting in the feed. And, this, the mission of cannabis, the cause is, of course, it's about health and the endocannabinoid system, but it's also about helping people make their dreams come true and creating generational wealth, and a level playing field where everyone has opportunity. And I think now, especially with everything going on in our country, it's pretty obvious it's not a level playing field. Never has been. And I think there's more acknowledgement of that. So I feel like that's partly what you're talking about and trying to bring into the sunlight. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It certainly is something that needs to be, a part of every conversation. If we're really all truly on the same team, then where is that teamwork? Because, when we have a team, not everyone is getting an equal chance. Not everyone's at equal skill. But if you want your team to succeed, you're going to take your stronger players and you're going to pair them with your weaker players, and you're going to bring their skill levels to the same line. So what that means is that someone might need a little bit more to get where you are, and someone may need slightly less or more than someone else. But when everybody gets what they need, that is where we start to talk about equity and equitable treatment. And so I think that's really where I think many of us want to be. All of us say we want to be there, but only a select few truly want to dive in and make it happen. Some people just want to talk about it. I'm not ever one to pull punches, so I'm not going to pull them now. Look, the deal is that a lot of people want to talk about it, and they want to say that while it's, again, has marketability, how equitable their company is, how many allies, how they want to work with women, persons of color, and then when it comes to get to the plate, if it's time to do it, they fail dramatically. It's dramatic how much the failure is. And that is what truly needs to change, for everybody to turn around and recognize, yes, this is, in this industry, just to use this industry, this is one plant, and we are the people that the plant serves. And all of our work is for the people. It's not really for profits. You can ask any operator and say, it's not for profits. You're doing it for some reason, but I'm going to challenge you if you're saying, everyday operator, if you're saying it's for profits. It's really our fight, those of us who are advocates, and we all should be in this space. We fight for the people. We fight for change. And that is teamwork.
No doubt. No doubt. No, I love it. Equity, like, it's not a bad word. It's actually okay to say it, and I say it, and proud to. So let's talk more about equity. Tiffany, what does equity mean to you? Let's go there.
Sure. I think I'll start with, I agree that it is an interesting word to say these days. It's actually been interesting since probably the, 2020 and some of the things that were going on then, right?
Yeah.
People made it a part of their mainstay, and I don't know that there's always been a deep understanding of what being equitable means. So for me, what that means is making sure people have what they need, not just equal amounts of it. If I have 5 and you have 5, that's equal, and that makes sense. But if we want equity, we've got to dig a little deeper. What does 5 mean for me versus what 5 means for you? So if 5 for you isn't enough, you actually need 7. Then we need to figure out how you get 7 so you can get up to the same level as me. But maybe you've got someone else over here who needs 4 more to get to the same level as us. As long as we have what we need to succeed, to thrive, then we have equity. And that's in all aspects. If you want to take it for cannabis businesses, equity in cannabis means no barriers to entry. Understanding that some persons of color, women, certain orientations have a harder time getting the opportunities in life. They may not have the same business acumen because the neighborhood they came from had no funding. So they didn't get the education, maybe that a neighborhood that had funding, they had opportunities for education and resources that bolstered them to a higher level.
And role models too.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
a big one.
No one, if you take the war on drugs, took a lot of people out of the home. Men
Right.
would kill. And so that happened in disproportionately large amounts in communities of color. So the opportunities just weren't there right there in the home to be able to have the resources and, like you said, people to look up to learn. So these folks need a little bit extra to get to just base level. And the fact that there are barriers to getting into this space built on their backs is a non-equitable situation. And so, folks are so afraid they're going to lose something by providing equitable spaces, and really you gain something from it. Because again, back to that community piece, it takes all of us, it takes several voices, and it takes unity. And we don't have that if we don't have equity.
Yeah, what you talked about, sort of building the industry on people's backs, and that really translated to all those people that did time and are continuing to do time for this, what is now in a lot of states anyway, a legal industry.
Yeah.
I think, this here's another word, fairness. And I think, I guess, and I think in the business world, there's always talk about like meritocracy and, the American way of, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and all of this stuff. And all of that does come down to how hard you're willing to work and the quality of your ideas. And then, of course, your ability to execute, which is the hardest thing of all. You may have a great idea, you may have a great product, but do you have the right people around you? All of these things come into play. And for me, equity is really about, trying to, for whether it be access to capital or access to the knowledge and experience, finding good role models, all of those things come into play when it comes to being successful. And there's still no guarantees, especially in this industry, right? There'll be a lot of casualties along the way.
Yeah.
But,
I think that's one that, to your point, access to capital. I think that's one that everyone needs funding for their businesses. That's the world we live in. It's not like, I'll date myself here, but back in my day, I'll put it that way. We operated in business differently. It was a brick and mortars and, handshake on the lease and you start in getting accounts and, and getting, 30 days, to pay this, 30 days to pay that. And it was a lot easier to navigate. We live in a much fast-paced world here, circa 30 years later. Access to capital is a real true thing. And a lot of people will talk about having, these people, they want to know, well, what have you put into your business? A lot of times, depending on who you are and what you have access to, you've maybe put only sweat equity into your business. You've been, robbing Peter to pay Paul and just really trying to get this idea off the ground, the concept proven.
Bartering, trading.
Whatever you got to do, right? Get that MVP. But you have others who maybe they say the friends and family round. For some folks, especially those of color, that is not something that happens. There is no friends and family round. These people have access to the same resources they did. So they're pulling nothing from nothing and being overlooked because they didn't put in enough. And I think that is another quiet barrier that folks don't realize, that access to capital is a huge thing based on where you come from. If you come from, where there is generational wealth, and that doesn't mean that you had maids and servants. That just means that everything was paid, meals were never missed. There was no stress, and you had a college fund. then maybe perhaps you're different than Billy over here, who barely finished high school because it was very difficult to get back and forth because his folk didn't have a car. And you know what I mean? Like all these other circumstances that get in the way. And then on top of that, he's got a great idea, and say he's built up a little bit of business acumen, but he has no funds and no one to ask. So all he's got is sweat equity. So I think that those are valuable ways to look at where we are in this space of cannabis, of who succeeds or has that air of success versus who is pulling up everything to end up with nothing. I think it's just something that we need not turn our eyes away from.
Yeah, it's really about understanding the reality, and I have to say, with all of the changes that Leafwire is going through right now, one of the things that's happened for me is that I've added mentors and advisors, and I'm always struck by, and it's a recurring theme in the industry that I'm hearing a lot right now, which is that just the power of partnerships, and even without necessarily capital, you can create synergies that can be very powerful. So I'm just really so thankful now that I have some really, really good role models and really good mentors. The power of that, you can't overstate how valuable that is.
Never.
Just not necessarily even in terms of what people do, but also just how they carry themselves, how they act. What does it mean to be a CEO? It's a different skill set.
It certainly is. It is, and having mentors in your life and having those that you can even just quietly watch their success, watch their failures, is quite valuable. It's part of something you can definitely build from. There's a lot out there, a lot of resources out there that if you are industrious and you're willing to hustle, you can find them for low or no cost. And observing people is a free activity that I know I love, and observing people is a huge part of what I do. And I find huge value in it for sure.
Yeah, me too. Okay, well, this is all powerful and relevant stuff. It's fun to talk about. So I guess let's talk about just the industry. I always like to ask this question, especially now with everything going on. What advice do you have to somebody who's looking at the cannabis industry? How would you suggest they proceed, or would you recommend being in the cannabis industry?
That's a double-edged sword. I think I both recommend and not recommend being in the cannabis industry. And as many people know, I'm an educator. I've been a professor, the business of cannabis and advocacy as well, for almost 5 years now through Oaksterdam University, where I continue to teach. And I'm also chair of the university's impact department. So I get to see a lot of the ins and outs and things going on with folks entering and exiting the space. And when I am teaching students, I always first remind them that if the moment you say you want in, that's the moment that you said you became an activist.
Oh, did you hang up?
Or you stepped into activism, because this has it, and it's got so much misinformation coming from and piping into the people that we have to be able to activate knowledge. So activism is a huge part. So my first thing is to tell them you're here, you're willing, and now this is what you're doing. You're an activist. So wake up and speak up. But I think my other set of advice would be to learn all it is that you can learn about the plant's history, its villainization, and its impact that it's had on people you know, folks of color, its impact in the LGBTQ plus community, and find out all of those marginalized on their own, but then also marginalized by the plant as well, and understand the impact. Because when you open your business, whatever it will be, this will be a business for the people. And if you don't understand where they're coming from, you'll be losing a bit of your success. If you're only focused on money, you will lose your success. So I like to let folks know, enter at your own risk, but also educate yourself. Understand business operations, understand where the history of this plant and the history of the people involved.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you. That's great. Okay, well, fantastic conversation. So, yeah, before we wrap, I understand you have a book coming out. Is that right?
I do.
Talk about that a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, and it's so funny because a lot of people will get a chuckle because it's not cannabis related. There's some cannabis related ones in the pipeline, but this particular one is a part of the other thing that I do with people, which is I coach folks through their relationships and partnerships. That's both in business and in their personal lives and love. And, you know, based on some of the conversations I've had over the last 6 to 8 months with clients, I wanted to revive a few things that folks I feel need to know about love and how they relate to that. And the book is called How Did We Get Here? And it's 9 moves toward understanding your power in love. And so what it's going to cover are some of those details that we forget about our past that we bring into the present, and it affects everything that we're doing. So finding out where some of the dysfunction comes from sets us firmly within our power to understand and control ourselves. And I just think it's a wonderful piece. I always smile when I think of it because these are concepts that I've talked and walked people through a lot of times, but it is a piece that even myself, I forget sometimes and go, oh, I'm reaching into my satchel of old things. I need to stay present. I need to pull back into my power and have control of myself. So I'm excited for it to launch. And yeah, just look out for it. It's coming at the top of August.
Okay, fantastic. That rings some bells for me, just hearing you talk about it. So I'll be looking forward to reading it myself.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, Tiffany Watkins, thank you so much for joining me. And, you know, technical difficulties notwithstanding, we got through it. I think we covered a lot of great ground. So thank you so much. And I look forward to talking with you again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
You got it.